Talk about your all-time backfires. I never thought I'd have a take worse than the NL East is over. And unfortunately, Craigie, you're not taking my spot, as we were joking about months ago. Who knows how that's going to end up here, BT. Obviously, we have to acknowledge it to start the show. We've read what's going on. We've been in the loop. This is not a surprise. You know, dating back to months, as I talked about, when we joked about that Craig would come back. To me, it was always inevitable when he left that he would come back. With that said, nothing is official. I'm grateful I have the opportunity to do this show with you every day, and we'll continue to do that as long as we have that opportunity.
Yeah, and they trust us to do the show the right way, which we're going to do here. Listen, yesterday was a tough spot. You know, I think a lot of people want to know why we didn't get into it on the air as things were breaking in real time, because we're being professionals. That's the short answer. I spoke to an executive this morning, and I know the contract's not signed. I know that, okay? But I also know that Craig will be coming back. So we're not trying to fool anybody. What that means downstream, there'll be many days and shows and segments to dive into that, give you guys more clarity. But you're right. I do think it's important to stress before we get into the actual show. Hey, do you really, Sal, let's be honest, at this point, do you give a rat's ass with Joe Schoen to say
Joe Schoen speak yesterday? I had other stuff going on.
Joe Schoen, listen. I had to listen to a word that Joe Schoen said.
Joe Schoen. My mother crying. My wife had to talk everybody off the ledge. You think I'm worried about what Joe Schoen said about his crappy Giants?
Care less about Joe Schoen. But listen, there will be a day where we'll do this more extensively for sure. This is not our last show. We can promise you this. And as long as we're here, we're going to do what we do, which is what we think a pretty damn good show.
Okay, and now let's do that and have some fun along the way here. So, all right, about Joe Schoen. For me, the number one thing, BT. Now, we talked about this yesterday. He was on the air when we first, it was about 15 minutes we had left in the show, 1:45. Then he started this thing.
He actually just speaks like 2:20.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. It was supposed to be at 1:45, so he was late. I mean, on par. Maybe he's going to be disciplined like Abdul Carter has been. But the number one takeaway from me, it's not about what Joe Schoen says because nobody cares, other than him saying that they're going to evaluate ownership, going to evaluate the entire football operation at the end of the season as they should. No assurances that Joe Schoen is going to be back. If the New York Football Giants allow Joe Schoen to decide who the next head coach is of this team, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they've been underperforming for 4 years. We know all the history. We don't have to rehash it. But at least to me, the one encouraging thing was that it wasn't definitive that he's going to be leading the search or that he's going to be here beyond this year. It's that the Giants organization is going to evaluate everything at the end of another lost season.
Allow me to do the evaluation for them. It's not good, and I think everything needs to change. And I think everything's going to change here, Sal. I really do. I don't think Joe Schoen's going to be back. Hey, maybe me, you, and Joe can do a podcast at some point. I do think that the Giants know that Joe Schoen was given a pretty fair shake and just didn't deliver to the level that I think the Giants needed him to deliver. Now, to me, and I think you and I fundamentally disagree a little bit on this, I think that the Giants' job is incredibly appealing right now. And Joe Schoen did say that. He said that yesterday, and I do agree with that. Now, think about all the other times when they were trying to hire a coach and they're going through the cycle, and we know all the names, just like we know all the bad, we don't need to regurgitate everything. We know who we're talking about. But every time that they were going through this, I don't think that it was ever clean. Like, number one, they never had a quarterback. I think we all think. Now, again, varying degrees. I think Dart's going to be a star. You really like him, maybe not as much as me. But I think everybody looks at him as incredibly attractive and very appealing. So that makes the job appealing. But the other thing, you go back to the early hires, right? You know, the McAdoofuses, as you call them, and Shermer. Like, that was, like, you had just ripped off the Eli Manning Band-Aid. And to me, there's never been a more undesirable position in terms of coming into coach or be the GM, but specifically to coach as the day-to-day mouthpiece of the franchise when you are trying to transition from a franchise icon. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's one thing to have the quarterback, which I believe they do in Jaxson Dart. It's another thing to not have to deal with, all right, the guy that just won a couple of Super Bowls and a couple of Super Bowl MVPs, and all right, he's there with Phil and Lawrence Taylor and Gifford and all the other great Strahan and all the other great Giants. We don't have to deal with that. So I thought that was an undesirable roadblock for maybe a lot of potentially good candidates who may have been interested in the Giants back then. That is not there. A good quarterback is. You'll have a new GM. I think it's a good job now.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm not going to go there because I think the next layer to this is what is ownership / decision-making going to look like here. where we don't know, unfortunately, and it's always a tricky thing to talk about. We say this every time with the health of Mr. Mara. We just don't know who's going to be making the decisions with the Giants long-term moving forward, or what the stability of ownership is going to look like. We're obviously hoping for the best, and maybe all is going to be well and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, for sure.
But if I'm being asked to interview for this head coaching job, or I'm a head coach that's available and this spot is there, I'm assessing everything about every potential opportunity. And if there's uncertainty or instability at the top, I don't know if it's as appealing as you're making it sound. Not to mention, then let's take it down a notch. Okay, with Jaxson Dart, yeah, you have a quarterback who's still learning, who has been reckless, not a bit reckless. He has been reckless. So he hasn't proven much. I know he's got potential. I'm not trying to knock Dart and say that he's not the answer. Daniel Jones had potential too. This feels different. It looks a little bit different. We understand that. Daniel Jones, by the way, is actually having success. As much as the Colts have come back down to the pack a little bit, he's had proven success. He's won a road playoff game before. Jaxson Dart has ways to go before we see that. He's on a 2-11 football team. I know it's not his fault, but again, he's out. He's got the concussion. He's playing reckless football. So it's not to me where, wow, it's the New York Football Giants and there's a stable organization, stability within the ownership. There hasn't been much turnover. They've got everything in place. Like, I look at the Giants right now as a mess, an unstable mess with uncertainty at the top.
They're a mess. There's no doubt that they're a mess, and they've been a mess for a long time. I'm not trying to put them on like if this was the NCAA tournament from an organizational perception point of view. I'm not saying they're the Niners or the Eagles with Howie Roseman or the Ravens, who have just, even though they're only 6-6 this year, they've really transitioned since they got away from Ozzie Newsome, and they've really been a model franchise, or the Buffalo Bills with a star quarterback and a good head coach. I'm not saying McDermott's great, but good, who's been there for a while, playoff team every year. No, it's really the complete antithesis. The Giants have been a bumbling mess for the better part of, 12, 13 years without outside of a few outlier seasons. I'm not trying to fool anybody and say that this is a good situation compared to the great situations in the NFL. But what I'm doing is I am taking the Giants opening, and I perceive there to be two openings eventually when Shane is relieved of his duties. So the head coach and the GM, I think it'll be very desirous, because you're going to have to compare
desirous or desirable?
Desirous, both fit.
I've never heard of desirous.
How did I know you were going to check me on that?
I've never heard desirous before.
They're both.
Okay. Desirous. Okay, I like it. I'm sorry. Continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah.
I got to double check this one too. I'm going to stick with desirous, although certainly desirable works as well. I think when you look at the other hot messes out there in the NFL, whether it's the Titans, the Browns, when Stefanski's fired, do you really think Sanders is going to be a quarterback of the future? Who knows? I don't. So I don't think of the other 6, 7, 8 openings. I don't think any one of them measures up to the Giants. It's the New York market. It is a quarterback that I believe in, and I believe that this will be the chance to have head coach and general manager synergy, meaning they're going to hire a new GM who's going to have direct say on the coach, and it won't be like, well, the coach is coming in and the GM's on his last leg and he's dead man walking, and there's a really good, accomplished veteran coach want to attach himself to that situation. I just think it's going to be a clean, fresh start, and I feel, I can't say, I wish I could say I know. I feel like Giants ownership knows they cannot entrust this job with somebody who's never done it before. It's big boy time.
BT and Sal on the Fan. Our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. I wonder if we're going to get calls today on support of Joe Schoen. A couple of weeks ago, we were getting some of those. I think the majority of people wanted to move on from Schoen even prior to Monday night. But now, at this point, seeing Shane and Kafka, is there anybody left out there that is in support of Joe Schoen? 888-808-1019. Brad is in Mineola starting us off. What's up, Brad?
Gentlemen, there's no support for Joe Schoen. And at the end of the day right now, we are the second pick in the draft. And I don't trust him to choose our next big player, our next big star. And there are a lot of them. And as a Michigan fan, unfortunately this year, there are a lot of them that are wearing the scarlet and white. Arvell Reese, Cornell Tate, to name a few. I don't trust it at all. And guys, just before I go, I'll follow you wherever you go. Love you guys.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that, Brad. I mean, think about this. Listen, I'm sure there's a Joe Schoen supporter somewhere, But I believe at this point, most voices are dissenting, and they should be, just based on the evidence, what he's done as the general manager of the Giants. I think you've got to really be ultra creative and think long and hard to come up with a reason to stamp him as the guy moving forward. So I'm not doing that. You're certainly not doing that. Very few people are. Now, if Abdul Carter was out there, number one, showing up on time and being a pro, but more specific to actually having a good rookie season or an impactful rookie season, if he's out there with 9.5, 10.5 sacks, well, maybe the calls come in and say, hey, guys, we know that, he hasn't won a lot of games, but, he just got a destructive force in terms of Carter. He got the quarterback, roll it out one more year. Well, the quarterback's been banged up pretty much every game, and Abdul Carter has not done anything. So I just don't think there's much evidence to try to prop up for Schoen to be the guy. I don't see it.
The idea that the Giants would release a statement weeks ago that Joe Schoen would be leading the way for the new head coach, that made no sense whatsoever. And then there were reports that came out that quickly not refuted that, but let everybody know, hey, that's not necessarily the case here. Even though it was the Giants who released that statement, there was no guarantee that Joe Schoen would be back. So I do think it's a circumstance of what's gone on there. This is not trying to pick on Joe Schoen or say that he needs. He had 4 years to turn this thing around, and it progressively got worse in the final 3 years of that. He has to go. I'm sorry. There's no way. Forget about having him mess with that top pick and the players he'd be bringing in. Why in the world would you trust him to pick the next head coach? There's no way the Giants should be thinking that. And at this point, I had my doubts, and then they released that statement. I was like, oh, man, this is a problem.
That shook me a little bit, too.
Yeah, okay, but now I feel definitively they're going to move on.
That's why sometimes, getting your brains beaten in on national TV is not a bad thing. Because now the perception, it just can't be ignored. I mean, when you have your kicker, killing worms and miss and not even hitting the ball, giving up a 94-yard, a special teams touchdown, and just looking like a train wreck for Buck and Aikman to diagnose all night for the entire world to hear it. That ain't a good look. And nobody affiliated with the Giants with any sort of juice is going to appreciate that. And I believe that will force them to react accordingly. Now, we'll get that answer, in 5 weeks or so when the Giants season is over. But the thing, too, you say that it's year 4 for Joe Schoen. And here was it's interesting because Dable's been gone now for a while and Shane's still here. But the thing that you and I always said, we were always in accord with this, Sal. At least with Dable, you can say, all right, where is the tangible evidence that proves he could be a coach? Well, he came in, inherited a mess, elevated a team that was moribund the years prior to that, got him 9 wins, won a road playoff game, and there wasn't a lot of talent. Squeeze a little something out of Daniel Jones and blah, blah, blah. We know what happened there. Where's the evidence that Joe Schoen's done anything? Because that first year, the only decent year that those two men had, in terms of attributing or trying to delineate the lines of success,
it was Dable.
Joe Schoen didn't do anything the first year because he didn't set that roster. Dable came in, coached him up, and then years 2, 3, and 4, when Schoen's influence was really felt on the roster, they've gone backwards and they've been non-competitive most years.
And at least now you could say definitively, that's what I'm saying. I think everybody now could agree. Even if you wanted to believe in Joe Schoen, they switched the head coach, not working. They switched the defensive coordinator, not working. Abdul Carter has issues. Nothing has been working. Dennis is in Yonkers, and I know he feels the same way. What's up, Danny?
Brandon and Sal, how are you both?
Good to hear from you.
What's up, man? How you doing today?
Man. Good, man. Good. Sal, I want Schoen out, but I mean, this is not a vendetta. I mean, I wanted them to be my last GM and coach. And the empirical evidence is there, 21, 44, and 1. If we keep them, it's going to be, 25, 55, and 1. There's nothing to say it's going to change. His roster has been mid-20s by metrics for 4 straight years or less. And in his 4th year, it should be an ascending championship roster, and it's not. Or a contending roster for playoffs. I gave him a lot of credit for drafting Jaxson Dart. That'll be his legacy. But let's face it, he wanted to move up and get Cam Ward. And if you did the tape work, I don't know how. Maybe you guys know. I don't know how Caleb Williams and Cam Ward were predetermined 1-1s over Daniels, May, and Dart. And they just, Sal, I do a draft for a couple of sites. It's just, if you did the tape work, I don't know what you saw, but, the industry said they were. And I think it's been proven that Daniels, May, and I think Dart is going to be a better asset and a better quarterback. The criteria is, can your quarterback take you to and win a championship? And I think those three can. I think Daniels will bounce back. I think he's really good. But the Shane here's what worries me. Paul Schwartz, who I think he's as good as anybody covering the Giants, wrote an article yesterday that said Shane needs next coach to be a leader. It almost sounds like there isn't a determination to move him out. And I'm worried that I think Kafka has exposed himself as not a head coach in waiting because his game management, time management are abysmal. But I'm not so sure Shane's going to be out because I keep seeing and hearing things that say he is, and he really should be. At this point, I hate to say it, he should be. And
sorry to cut you off, Dennis, and we appreciate your knowledge and taking the time to call. Thank you. If they keep Joe Schoen, there's nothing further to discuss. I don't care who the quarterback. Joe Schoen can't be picking the next head coach. He shouldn't be picking players. What they said the same thing after last season. Well, we believe we had a great draft. Oh, well, then how come you didn't win any games? Oh, well, we believe we have a talent. Well, then how come you're 2-11? Something doesn't add up to me. You either pick great players, which should leading to wins, or you don't pick good players, which is why your record is what it is. Not for one fluky year. For 3 years, you've had an abysmal record. You're supposed to show growth from a new regime from year 1 to year 4. We have seen regression from them. If Joe Schoen is around, the New York Football Giants aren't even worth discussing.
Well, think about this. Gettleman, and listen, Gettleman caught a lot of heat, and rightfully so. He didn't really do the job either. Which is part of, when you have two GMs who haven't really done the job, you look up, it's a decade of hell. And that's pretty much what it equates to. So we shouldn't be surprised that we're here. And even at the end of Reese, I mean, it wasn't really good. But the point is, like with Gettleman, you talk about him when he was shown the door, and then people started parachuting in like, wow, he did the Andrew Thomas and Saquon and some of the best players on the roster. That's got to be on the resume of Gettleman. Understood. It doesn't mean that there can't be a few bright spots on the resume, much like there's a couple of bright spots on the resume for Joe Schoen. But you either win or you don't. And I think more importantly here, you either show a real direction, like not compete and still lose 13 times a year, but you slowly, incrementally start to win some games, and they've never done that. So to me, there's really nothing else to evaluate with Joe Schoen. I'm sorry.
BT and Sal on the Fan. We'll continue the conversation with your calls, 888-808-1009, working some baseball as well, some hot stove stuff, so plenty to get to here. Just getting started on this. What day is today? Wednesday morning, Sal. On the Fan.